Xie Sue. Xie Sue is one of the most unconventional and unpredictable players in professional tennis. She doesn't rely on raw power or booming serves. In fact, her shots often look soft by today's standards. But don't be fooled. What she lacks in power, she makes up for with one of the most bizarrely effective strategies in the game. Xie's style revolves around variety, court awareness, and perfect placement. She plays with two hands on both the forehand and backhand sides, giving her unusual control and the ability to redirect shots in ways that constantly catch opponents off guard. Her ground strokes aren't about speed, they're about angles, spin, and surprise. She can change direction at the last second, or wrong foot opponents with a simple flick. She doesn't just stay back either. Her quick reflexes and net instincts make her a constant threat up front. Whether it's a sneaky approach shot or a perfectly timed poach, Xie thrives at the net with clean volleys and sharp anticipation. Her strategy is built on rhythm disruption. She slows the game down, changes pace, and makes her opponents play shots they're not comfortable hitting. This is why she's especially dangerous in doubles, where court positioning and timing are everything. With her quick hands and deceptive movement, Xie has won 7 Grand Slam doubles titles, often outsmarting teams that rely purely on pace and power. She might not dominate with brute strength, but her tennis IQ, feel for the court, and ability to confuse her opponents make her one of the most creative forces the sport has ever seen. Michael Chang. Michael Chang arrived on the pro tennis scene as a gritty, lightning-quick player with a fierce return game. He entered the tennis world at just 12 years old and quickly rose through the junior ranks as one of the most outstanding young talents of his time. At 15, he won his first ever main draw match, and in 1989, at just 17, he achieved one of the most memorable feats of his career when he won the French Open title after defeating Stefan Edberg in a dramatic 5-set final. But beyond winning the title, Chang's 1989 French Open run is equally remembered for his legendary 4th-round match against Ivan Lendl. At the time, Lendl was the world number 1, the reigning Australian Open champion, and a 3-time former French Open winner. Most expected him to cruise past the teenage underdog. Lendl looked well on his way, taking the first 2 sets, 6-4, 6-4, and breaking Chang early in the 3rd. But Chang broke back immediately and went on to win the set 6-3. In the 4th set, things took a dramatic turn when Chang began suffering from severe leg cramps. Despite the pain, he fought through and won the set, leveling the match. At 2-1 in the 5th set, he seriously considered retiring, but later said he felt an unbelievable conviction in my heart to keep going. That was when Chang started using some truly unconventional tactics. He began hitting exaggerated high lobs, known as moonballs, to slow the game down and disrupt Lendl's timing. He also went for riskier winners to shorten points and avoid long rallies. The bizarre but brilliant approach threw Lendl completely off rhythm. Frustrated, Lendl began complaining to the umpire and even to the crowd. Then came the moment everyone remembers. Chang hit an underarm serve in the middle of the 5th set, catching Lendl off guard. On match point, Chang took it a step further. He stood just behind the service line while receiving Lendl's second serve. The pressure worked. Lendl double faulted, and Chang sealed one of the most iconic wins in tennis history. This match remains one of the defining moments of Michael Chang's career. At just 17, he showed not only heart and resilience, but also the tennis intelligence to outthink and outlast the world number 1, despite being in physical pain. Miloslav Mečíř. We're going back in time, way before big rackets, baseline brawls, and power serves ruled the court. If you ever stumbled onto a Mečíř match without knowing who he was, you'd be forgiven for thinking he wasn't really trying. The guy didn't grunt, he didn't scream, he didn't blast the ball. He looked like he was gliding in slow motion. But somehow, and this is the bizarre part, he kept winning. Miloslav Mečíř, also known as the Big Cat, wasn't your traditional tennis warrior. He didn't overpower his opponents with raw force. No, he disarmed them, gently. Mečíř's strategy was built on taking the pace off the ball, creating impossible angles, and forcing his opponents to beat themselves. And it worked so well, You almost felt bad for whoever was on the other side of the net. He was the king of improbable shot making. Instead of winding up for booming forehands or backhands, Meichis used his incredible touch, balance, and timing to hit precise shots that danced just over the net and curved like they had a mind of their own. His backhand, in particular, was a thing of beauty. Smooth, effortless, and eerily effective. Some have compared it to Andy Murray's backhand, but even that feels like underselling how weirdly effective Meichis was. He would hit down the line forehands while barely moving his feet, and drop volleys that kissed the net and died before you could even blink. And don't let the soft strokes fool you. The man played chess on a tennis court. Imagine playing with someone whose shots felt like a lullaby, and just when you're drowsy, they slap a line-hugging winner past you. That's how Meichis played. 1 second, you're in a 20-shot rally. The next, he hits an overhead smash standing parallel to the net, aimed at the crowd. Risky? Absolutely. But that was the magic of it all. What made his strategy bizarre wasn't just the technique, it was the mindset. Meichis would often look disengaged mid-match, then suddenly go for a low-percentage, high-risk shot just to break rhythm. He wasn't playing to dominate, he was playing to unsettle. And even though he didn't serve and volley like many of his peers, he still approached the net frequently, where he volleyed with the calm confidence of a man slicing butter. Watch his match against Ivan Lendl in the 1987 US Open quarterfinal, and you'll see it. A masterclass in mystifying tennis. He might not be the fastest guy, but his court coverage was feline-level elegant, earning him his nickname. At his peak, Meichis reached the 1986 US Open final and won the 1988 Olympic gold medal, proving that you could play like a smooth jazz record and still beat the heavy metal players of the era. A floating spirit in a world of baseline bashers. Today, when we talk about bizarre strategies in tennis, the Big Cat deserves a shrine of his own. He was the whisper in a sport full of screams. Fabrice Santoro. Fabrice Santoro didn't get the nickname the Magician for nothing. His game was unique, with spins, slices, angles, and unpredictable shot selection. Santoro could make even the best players confused. His strategy? Pure disruption. He denied his opponents rhythm and pace by slicing relentlessly, keeping the ball low and awkward. On top of that, his rare two-handed grip on both forehand and backhand gave him a completely different look, one that most players weren't used to facing. He wasn't the most powerful player out there, but his style frustrated opponents to no end. That frustration often turned into mistakes, and those mistakes fueled his longevity. Santoro became the first man to appear in 70 Grand Slam singles events, a testament to how effective his game was, even without the firepower. Throughout his career, he notched wins over legends like Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras, Thomas Muster, and even Roger Federer. And he wasn't just a singles magician, he was also a force in doubles, capturing 2 Grand Slam doubles titles along the way. His style wasn't traditional, but it was unforgettable. With his creativity, court sense, and flair, Fabrice Santoro became a fan favorite, not in spite of his bizarre game, but because of it. John McEnroe. McEnroe was different, not just emotionally, we'll get to the outbursts, but strategically. In an era already defined by net rushers, he'd charge the net like it owed him money, and his style worked in the most bizarre way possible. His serve might not be as powerful as expected, but it is strange. As a lefty, McEnroe's delivery spun out wide at crazy angles, pulling opponents off the court before they even got comfortable. But it was what came after the serve that truly separated him. He followed nearly every single one to the net, even on second serves, even when common sense begged him not to. And then came the volleys. While most players are taught to keep the racket head up and follow through cleanly at the net, McEnroe said, nah. He dropped the racket head, flicked his wrist, and essentially broke every textbook rule of volleying, and still ended up with what many call the best hands in tennis history. He could stab volleys off his shoelaces, redirect missiles at impossible angles, and make the ball die like it fell into a patch of quicksand. Now, of course, the equipment of his era helped. Wooden rackets and natural gut strings made it harder for opponents to fire consistent passing shots. The courts were faster too. But don't let that fool you, because McEnroe's net instincts, reflexes, and reaction time were out of this world. And just when opponents thought they had a rhythm. Enter the McEnroe mind games. This man could turn a quiet match into a courtroom drama in seconds. The yelling, the umpire confrontations, the "you cannot be serious" moments are all part of the chaos. But here's what makes it golden. The tantrums were never just noise. They rattled opponents, disrupted the pace, and gave McEnroe the control he wanted, even if it looked like he was losing it. But don't confuse the theatrics with carelessness. Underneath the antics was a brilliant tennis brain. McEnroe was calculating. He understood geometry, tempo, and how to construct points better than most of his peers. He once made it to the French Open final on slow clay, the worst surface for serve and volley players, and almost won it, choking away a 2-set lead in 1984. But even getting there, with his style, absurd. Let's not forget the stats. 7 Grand Slam singles titles, 77 ATP singles titles, and 10 more Grand Slams in doubles. He was a beast on the court, just not in the way anyone expected. Every net rush, every flick volley, every shout at the umpire. It was all part of a bizarre strategy that got his opponents worked up. His strategy? Attack first. Think later. And if you're in doubt, argue. Arthur Ashe. Arthur Ashe is remembered not just as a champion, but as one of the game's great thinkers. His calm demeanor, sharp mind, and tactical awareness set him apart on the court. And perhaps no match better captured that side of Ashe than the 1975 Wimbledon final. Facing Jimmy Connors, the defending champion and one of the most aggressive, hard-hitting players of the era, Ashe knew he couldn't win by playing Connors' game. Instead, he delivered a tactical masterclass. Rather than meeting power with power, Ashe slowed the pace down. He used soft shots, sliced returns, and angled placements to take the rhythm away from Connors. He played low, kept the ball short, and forced Connors to create his own pace and do more of the work, something that didn't suit his natural style. Ashe's game plan was deliberate and disciplined. He didn't give Connors any pace to feed off, and he constantly moved him around the court, pulling him wide, making him stretch, and drawing out errors. It was not flashy, but it was smart. And most of all, it was effective. That match wasn't just about physical execution. It was about understanding the opponent, adapting to the moment, and staying committed to a strategy that most wouldn't have expected. Ashe won the match in 4 sets and cemented his legacy by capturing the Wimbledon title. Nick Kyrgios. A true showman, Nick Kyrgios is known for his wide range of shots, including powerful serves, tweeners, and an arsenal of trick shots that not only entertain the crowd, but also throw his opponents off balance. One of the signature weapons in his game is the underhand serve. While he's not the first player to ever use it, Kyrgios is definitely one of the names that comes to mind when the underhand serve is mentioned. Known for his powerful serve, Kyrgios often forces opponents to stand far behind the baseline to return. That is exactly what makes his underhand serve so effective. Just when players are bracing for a strong serve, he catches them off guard with a soft, well-disguised underhand delivery. It keeps them guessing. This tactic forces opponents to respect the possibility of an underhand serve and makes them adjust their return position, which in turn creates more space and angles for Kyrgios's regular serve. Beyond the technical advantage, it also plays mind games. Some opponents see it as disrespectful or frustrating, and that emotional reaction can throw off their focus. Whether it creates hesitation, self-doubt, or just breaks rhythm, the underhand serve is a psychological tool as much as it is a strategic one in Kyrgios's unpredictable game. Ashleigh Barty. Imagine being 5'5" in a sport where your average opponent towers over you and slams the ball like a cannon. Most players would beef up their power game or hang back and rally from the baseline. But Ashleigh Barty? She took one look at the traditional playbook and tossed it out. Let's start with her serve. It may not be the fastest, but it's sneaky. Her signature move? The kick serve, or as some call it, the hopper. Instead of blasting the ball flat and fast, Barty loads it with heavy topspin. The result? The ball leaps off the court like it just drank an energy drink, bouncing awkwardly high and wide, yanking opponents out of position. It's like trying to swat a grasshopper mid-jump. Most female players rarely hit this serve, so it's already throwing them off from point one. But wait, the slice backhand? That's where things get deliciously weird. While most modern players favor a solid two-handed backhand, consistent, controlled, and safe, Barty brings out the single-handed slice like it's her secret weapon. It's not just defensive, it's art. She knifes through the ball, sending it skidding low with unpredictable spin. It doesn't sit up, it bites. It's the tennis equivalent of a sudden mood swing. 1 second you're in rhythm, the next you're lunging awkwardly like a beginner at club night. Most players are used to the ball bouncing up into their sweet spot. Barty's slice stays low, annoying, and disruptive. It's like swiping your opponent's controller mid-game. And her forehand? Oh, it's not a joke either. She generates heavy topspin, moves the ball around like a chess master, and adapts mid-match based on who she's facing. She's not blasting it from the back every time. She's constructing points like an architect, using angles and depth rather than brute force. She wins by confusing you, and that's Barty's bizarre brilliance. Alexander Bublik. He bursts onto the court with power, flair, and a constant eye for the unexpected. He delivers huge serves and plays with an unpredictable, almost chaotic style that regularly catches opponents off guard. From underarm serves to mid-rally trick shots, Bublik isn't afraid to break the mold. His flashy style, sharp sense of humor, and laid-back attitude have made him a fan favorite. Bublik thrives on mind games. He confuses opponents not just with his shot variety, but with his unpredictability. One point might give his opponent a powerful serve, the next a delicate drop shot or tweener. His flair and creativity can frustrate even the most composed players. One memorable match came in the semifinals of the 2023 Halle Open, where Bublik faced local favorite Alexander Zverev on the grass courts of Germany. With the home crowd behind Zverev, most expected a tight match. Instead, Bublik dismantled him in straight sets. His strategy was clear: disrupt Zverev's rhythm and take away his comfort zone. Bublik mixed in drop shots, serve and volley plays, and low skidding slices that forced Zverev to constantly move forward, something he's not always comfortable doing. He also took an aggressive return position, stepping closer to the baseline to take time away from Zverev's serve, which kept the German guessing. It was a textbook example of how Bublik, when locked in, can use his unpredictability, not just to entertain, but to win games. Steffi Graf. Imagine having a shot so bizarre that everyone in the 90s just avoided it. But for Steffi Graf, opponents didn't fear her backhand. They feared her forehand. That thing was deadly. They thought, let's feed her backhands instead. But that was a bad idea. Here's why. Graf's backhand was almost always a slice, but not just any slice. This wasn't a stay-in-the-point slice, it was a dig-a-trap slice. She used it offensively, with sharp depth and a nasty bite. Most slices are like tapping the brakes, but hers were like downshifting into high gear and slingshotting you into her forehand zone. They'd keep sending balls to her backhand, trying to avoid her forehand flamethrower. But what they got in return was a low, biting, deep slice that forced them to bend, lift, and stretch. And here's the thing. It was in the 90s. Players had smaller rackets and tighter strings, so lifting low balls wasn't easy. There was no brushing topspin out of trouble. Most of them had no choice but to push it back. Exactly what Graf wanted. You'd see Graf slicing down the line, the ball skimming just above the net, pulling her opponent wide. And then she'd dart across the baseline, run around it, and unleash a forehand missile straight into the open court. Boom. Point over. Her footwork was elite, like dancer-level elite. She moved so efficiently that her court coverage let her turn most backhands into forehands. Remind you of someone? Yeah, Nadal and Federer do this too. She was the original run-around-it queen, and the only player to win at least 7 WTA titles for 11 consecutive seasons. Just thought to point that out. And here's where the strategy gets even weirder. Sometimes, she basically refused to hit a backhand topspin shot. She made the slice do all the work, disrupting rhythm, forcing awkward contact, dragging opponents side to side, and opening the door for her monster forehand. In today's game, players can chew through slices if they're not precise, but in Graf's era, slices were a legit rally weapon. Not a novelty, but an actual tactic that could win you titles. She hit her slice so deep, so low, and so offensive that even in her prime, her opponents had no choice but to send up floaters. And pray she didn't get to hit her forehand. Spoiler, she usually did. Andy Murray. Imagine playing against someone who doesn't just hit hard and fast, but someone who thinks about every shot like he's playing chess, not tennis. That person right there is Andy Murray. Most rising players swing hard, digging in with brute force hoping to end points quickly. But Andy Murray, he pulled a different playbook. He was doing something very different. Something kind of weird. Early in his career, Murray didn't follow the raw power everyone craved. He played more softly. Not because he lacked strength. It was his weirdly brilliant plan. Think of it like a fishing net. Let the fish come to it, then close the trap. Murray stood well behind the baseline, baiting opponents into attacking. Then boom, he'd rip a passing shot. His timing and anticipation were so good, it could feel unfair. If you were watching him from the stands, it might look like he was being lazy or just defending. But what he was really doing was setting a trap. Every soft shot, every slice, every weird angle was like a piece of cheese for a mouse. Once the opponent took the bait, boom, Andy would strike with a perfect shot. You'd see him standing a good 6 to 10 feet behind the baseline, deliberately deep, almost inviting his opponent to swing away. Yet, as soon as they did, Murray would whip in, darting forward with astonishing speed, and slip in a laser-sharp passing shot to end the point. And don't get it twisted, Andy was fast. Super fast. Like zoom fast. Even if you hit the ball far away from him, he'd chase it down and send it back with an angle you didn't expect. This wasn't just about speed. It was like he could see the future. He always seemed to know where the ball was going before you hit it. And his biggest weapon? The return of serve. Just look at how he won a point after returning the 147 mile per hour serve from his opponent, Milos Raonic. Most players hate returning fast serves. Not Andy. He loved it. He'd block the serve, redirect it, or sneak it past you. Sometimes it looked like he wasn't even trying hard, but the ball would land exactly where it needed to be. Despite being called a counterpuncher, he isn't the usual type. He blends defense with offense so fluidly, you don't know which page of the script he's on. He can slash a defensive lob that turns defense into attack in one swing. Andy's strategy looked soft, but it was actually super smart. He likes making his opponents tired, frustrated, and confused. They never knew if he was going to hit a deep slice, a short drop shot, a big forehand, or a slow spin. Over time, Andy added more power to his game. He worked on hitting harder shots when he needed to, but he never lost that brainy and sneaky style. He kept setting traps, and it worked. While most of the top guys were all about power and speed, Andy chose variety and intelligence. And even though it didn't always look flashy, it won him 3 Grand Slam titles and 2 Olympic gold medals. Tatjana Maria. Tatjana Maria is known for her crafty, smart game that blends solid defense with clever shot making. She might not be the flashiest player on tour, but her ability to control rallies with well-placed slices and relentless court coverage makes her a tough opponent. Maria's style is all about patience, consistency, and forcing her rivals into mistakes rather than trying to overpower them. At the London tournament, especially on the grass courts of the Queen's Club, Maria's strategy really stood out. She used her slice forehand and backhand masterfully and as often as possible to keep the ball low and skidding, making it difficult for opponents to attack comfortably. By mixing these tricky slices with quick movement around the court, she disrupted her opponent's rhythm and forced them to play catch-up. Using this approach, she defeated some of the biggest baseline hitters, including Rybakina, Keys, and Anisimova. At age 37, Tajana Maria sliced her way to victory at the Queen's Club and proved that sometimes disruption and defense can be just as deadly as power and speed. Roger Federer. One of the first names that comes to mind when people talk about tennis is Roger Federer. His elegance on the court, his movement, his timing, everything he did made tennis look effortless, like a work of art. He's one of the most accomplished players in the history of the sport, winning a total of 20 Grand Slam titles throughout his illustrious career. Federer had an incredible variety of shots and was considered a true all-court player. He kept opponents guessing with a mix of power, finesse, and tactical precision. His Grand Slam success wasn't built on just one strength. It came from his ability to shift gears midpoint, a blistering forehand one moment, a feather-light drop shot the next, a wide kick serve followed by a perfectly timed serve and volley. He wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but at his peak, he was the most complete. He made tennis look like poetry in motion. One tactic that stood out during Federer's career was the saber, short for sneak attack by Roger. This move involved Federer rushing forward as his opponent tossed the ball to serve, stepping well inside the baseline to take the return early and instantly putting himself in an attacking position. It often caught opponents off guard, rushed their service rhythm, and gave Federer the chance to finish points quickly at the net. The saber wasn't just flashy, it was a smart, high-risk adjustment that became a key part of his late career resurgence and helped him win major titles well into his 30s. The saber wasn't something every player could pull off. It took precision, guts, and perfect timing. But Federer made it look effortless. In tight moments, when the pressure was highest, he wasn't afraid to take the risk. More often than not, it paid off. Novak Djokovic. You've heard it before. Novak Djokovic is mentally unbreakable and physically elite. But what's truly bizarre is how he uses those strengths, and why young players still model themselves on his game. Think of Djokovic's strategy as a deep ball factory. He caves in pressure by hitting ball after ball into your court, not at your feet, but deep, forcing you into a slow-motion panic. He started with a simple formula: keep the ball deep and wait for the short. But over time, that evolved into something surgical. Djokovic targets precision over power, especially with his backhand. Down the line that shoots bruises, but it respects your piece. Every stroke is a decision of where to place it, how to spin it, and when to shift momentum. Now add mental toughness. He uses mindfulness and mental scripts to stay present through chaos. When everyone else collapses under pressure, Djokovic reverses time and sticks every return. And the mindset? He's the ultimate reset button. A missed serve? He mentally catches it mid-air and drops it behind him like yesterday's mail. He's no longer just a baseline assassin. He's become the most well-rounded, mentally immune all-court player in history. So what do you think? Which of these tactics was your favorite? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, because there are plenty more tennis stories and deep dives coming your way. Bernard Tomic, the guy who plays tennis like he's half asleep on purpose. Most players blast their serves. They crush their forehands. They sprint. They grunt. They try to out-hit you. But Tomic, he just strolls around the court like he's at a Sunday picnic. Now, that might look lazy, although it's not laziness. It's strategy. Bizarre strategy. Instead of trying to beat you with power, Tomic tries to mess with your rhythm. Imagine you're dancing to a fast beat, and suddenly the music slows down, way down, and you're still trying to groove. That's what Tomic does to his opponents. He changes the pace of the rally in ways that most pros would never dare. One moment, he's hitting a soft slice that barely reaches your side of the court. The next, he smacks a flat forehand right at your feet. Then, just when you think you've figured him out, he hits a forehand drop shot. Yes, a forehand drop shot from the baseline. Not many players do that. But Tomic, he does it for fun. His game is all about deception. His backhand slice is smooth and sneaky. His forehand has no big windup. His serve isn't huge, but it's smartly placed. And most of the time, he plays with zero expression. It's like he's playing poker. You never know what's coming next, or if he even cares. Sometimes it looks like Tomic doesn't care. His relaxed body language has gotten him in trouble. Critics say he's not intense enough, that he lacks hustle, that he gives up mid-match. But when you do watch him closely, you realize something else. Tomic plays a different game. Where others sweat and sprint, he chills. Where others go boom boom boom, he goes bop, pause, dink. His whole strategy is built on throwing off your timing, your patterns, your plans. He's the kind of player who can beat you without looking like he tried. And honestly, that messes with your head. Tomic belongs on this list because his style is the total opposite of modern tennis. He doesn't use brute force. He doesn't grind. He doesn't rush. Instead, he turns the match into a weird puzzle. And if you don't solve it, you lose. Gael Monfils. Gael Monfils is one of the most entertaining players tennis fans love to watch. He combines electric athleticism, gravity-defying jumps, and flamboyant shot-making that always gets the crowd on their feet. There's a reason he's called La Monf, or Slider Man. He's not just a showman, he's a high-level competitor who can switch from playful to deadly serious in a heartbeat. Monfils' game is full of sudden bursts of aggression, followed by light, playful defense. One moment he'll pull off a behind-the-back shot, just for fun. The next he's sprinting to the net and finishing the point with a perfectly timed volley. That explosive shift in tempo is his trademark. There are also matches where it seems like he's on the verge of retirement, barely moving, clutching his leg, or looking like he's running on fumes. But then, in a flash, he'll burst to life with an acrobatic winner or a series of electrifying plays that make you wonder if he was ever hurting at all. This kind of dramatic tempo shift was on full display in his US Open semifinal clash against Novak Djokovic. Monfils was struggling early, and at one point even getting booed by the crowd for what looked like passive or erratic play. But suddenly, the switch flipped. He started playing inspired tennis, landing aggressive winners and pushing Djokovic around the court. The crowd turned with him. The energy shifted. These sudden changes in level and intensity can throw off even the best players. They confuse, frustrate, and force opponents out of rhythm. Monfils didn't win that match, but he rattled one of the greatest players the sport has ever seen and reminded everyone just how unpredictable and dangerous he can be. Jimmy Connors. While the rest of the tennis world evolved with big looping swings and topspin heavy shots, Connors kept things tight, compact, and razor sharp. His strokes looked like they belonged in a different sport. Short backswing, flat follow-through, and deadly precision. And the weirdest part? It worked. It really worked. Connors grew up hitting balls under the guidance of his mom, Gloria, and his grandmother, Bertha. Both were former players. They didn't teach him the textbook men's style. Instead, he learned what he called a woman's game. Short strokes, early preparation, and clean contact. His forehand, whippy and flat. His backhand, two-handed and deadly before it was cool. He didn't rely on brute power. He built his entire game around control, angles, and rhythm disruption. When the whole tour was upgraded, Jimmy refused to switch to graphite rackets. He stuck with his old school Wilson T 2000, a metal racket with a spaghetti string feel. Everyone thought it was insane, but that's the bizarre part. He made it work like a magic wand. His shots stayed low, skidded off the court, and gave players zero time to react. Now, fast forward to 1991. Connors is 39 years old, basically an ancient warrior in tennis terms, playing the US Open. He faces Aaron Krickstein in a 5-set thriller. He shouldn't win, but he does. That match, especially that one electrifying point, goes viral before viral was even a thing. The crowd? Unhinged. Jimmy? Pumping fists. Roaring like a rock star. What makes his style bizarre wasn't just the strokes, but the nerve to never change. In an era that left many players behind, Connors stood his ground, almost defiantly, with accuracy as his weapon and attitude as his armor. Dustin Brown, When people talk about unique playing styles in tennis, Dustin Brown often comes up. Known for his dreadlocks and lively on-court presence, he brought a style of play that fans began to call dready tennis, a mix of unpredictability, flair, and bold shot-making that stood apart. Brown didn't follow the typical patterns of modern tennis. Instead of long rallies or grinding from the back of the court, he preferred to keep points short, taking early risks and looking to finish at the net. His serve and volley game was aggressive, and he had a natural feel for improvisation. One point might be a textbook volley, the next a drop shot or a perfectly disguised slice that kept opponents off balance. What made Brown particularly interesting wasn't just his style, but the way he could apply it against top-level opponents. He famously holds a 2-0 record against Rafael Nadal, one of the sport's most accomplished and consistent players. That kind of result is rare, and it shows how effective Brown's approach could be, especially when everything was clicking. His game relied on variety and pressure. He looked to take control early in the rally, often coming forward and forcing the issue. He used a mix of volleys, overheads, spins, and angles to keep his opponents guessing. While his style carried a high level of risk, Brown often stayed composed in important moments. He didn't shy away from pressure and had a way of bringing energy to both the match and the crowd. Dready tennis didn't lead to Grand Slam titles, but that wasn't really the point. Brown offered something different, a reminder that there's room in tennis for creativity, instinct, and expression. His matches weren't just about winning or losing, but about playing with identity and confidence. In that way, he left a mark on the game that goes beyond the scoreboard. So, what do you think? Which of these tactics was your favorite? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, because there are plenty more tennis stories and deep dives coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.